George Nakashima's beautiful work at the Monastery of Christ in the Desert.
Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. From the beginning to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Former abbot of Gethsemane Abbey, Timothy Kelly, one time said, monks have to live in beauty. And if they go to a place that's ugly, they have to transform it. See, for us, we didn't have to transform it. Even what we build is simply trying to reflect it. We're blessed to have this kind of church in this space. It'd be a shame if it were just a monument instead of a living place of worship. So the church grows and changes, and moves back and forth. It's a living tribute to George Nakashima that he created something so wonderful that we can still pray in it now and just be lifted up. So.
When my father first came to this canyon, he must have been blown away by its beauty. It's almost like the canyon itself is sacred. He felt that whatever architecture he built should not be an expression of the ego, but it should be reflective of the environment, that it should be reflective of the people who use it. It should fit into the landscape. It shouldn't be trying to change the landscape. He must have seen those cliffs and the scree at the base, and he was probably inspired by that. And the bell tower reflects those shapes, just almost literally. And it was just this tremendous fusion of this American Adobe architecture and Japanese sensibility and the aspiration from the Indian philosophy that he had within himself. He worked with the office of Anton and Raymond, and the Raymond office sent him to India in 1936 to work on a reinforced concrete building for the ashram of Sri Aurobindo. I think the ashram Golkond building was pivotal in his spiritual and personal development. His Indian name that the Sri Aurobindo gave him is Sundarananda, which means he who delights in beauty. He thought he was going to be a monk there for the rest of his life until the World War II started percolating, and he decided he better go back to his family in the U.S. He had this strict training in architectural construction and engineering, and that manifested itself in everything he made. When he worked in architecture, it was not a direct experience, but making furniture was a direct experience. You really had to know what you're doing with your hands, you had to understand the material, you had to have a vision of what you wanted that material to become. And when he first started out in Seattle, he only used lumber that was available, but then he were put into the camps, and when he started out finally back into furniture on the East Coast, he couldn't afford to buy the good lumber. So he would go to the lumber yards and use the offcuts. And he was inspired by the offcuts and the strange shapes that they had sometimes. And they became part of his design. So it was a little bit serendipitous. He probably wouldn't have gone into that if it hadn't been, everything that happened to him. One can say that it was divine inspiration or something, or divine guidance that brought him to where he was. My father, George Nakashima, was very loving and gentle and sweet to a point. He didn't talk much. He was like a Zen master. You sort of had to figure it out by yourself. When he came here, Dad was kind of going back to the ashram where people all work together for a common goal. And he realized that they were 13 miles from a road, and the road was really bad, and it was very hard to get materials here. So they went to work and made adobe from the clay that was already here. And they used the Vigas that were close by. They used the workmen who were close by. They didn't have any money, but Dad was very happy to volunteer his time and his energy and his vision to share with the monks. And he wanted to make a beautiful space for them to gather in.